All right, guys, we're College Algebra, Math 1513, Northern Oklahoma College, Chapter 2, doing Section 3. We're going to graph an equation by finding the slope and the y-intercept of the line. All right, the first thing we have to understand when we're doing this is we have to understand how to write an equation in slope-intercept form. And what is slope-intercept form? It's just the most common way of writing any equation. Anytime you put an equation in this form where you get the y alone, you isolate the y, and then you have your equal sign, and then you put an x term right next to it, and then you have a number out here on the end. Anytime you put an equation in that form, it's super easy to graph because now you know your slope and y-intercept just by reading the equation. So where's the slope? You guys remember that little letter M that I said earlier stands for slope in math? That number in front of the x, that's going to be our slope. And what's this number hanging around out here on the end? That's going to be our y-intercept. That's where they get the name slope-intercept form, because when you write it in this form, here's your slope and here's your y-intercept. And we just take those two pieces of information and graph a line real quick. All right, guys, now remember I said there's going to be four types of lines you deal with. There's going to be lines that go uphill. So I've given you a couple lines that go uphill. Now, how do you know that those two lines go uphill? Well, just look at your slope. Now, remember where slope is. I have all these equations written in slope-intercept form. So since the y is isolated, you just look at the x term. Now, look at the number in front of the x term. And if that's a positive number, that means your slope is going uphill. So on that first line, we have a positive 2/3 x. So look at that number in front of the x. It's 2/3. It's positive. That means it's going uphill. Same thing on the second line. That's a positive 2/3. Now, I also wanted to show you a couple lines going downhill. How do you know they're going downhill? You look at the slope. Look at the number in front of the x. It's negative. That means that's going to be a line that goes downhill. And then later on the bottom there, the y equals 5 and x equals 4, I'm going to show you a line that's flat or horizontal. And I'm going to show you a line that's vertical that goes up and down. So let's start back up at the top. Y equals 2/3 x plus 2. How do I graph that? Well, the first thing you do is you look at your y-intercept. That's where it's going to cross the y-axis. Your line is going to intercept the y-axis at number 2. So I go to my y-axis and I find the number 2 right there. That is where my line is going to cross the y-axis. That's why they call it an intercept. It intercepts the line, intercept or intersect, whichever one makes more sense to you. It intercepts the line at the number 2 on the y-axis. So from there, we use our slope. Let's go back to our slope now. We use our slope to figure out where the line goes, if it goes uphill or downhill. Now, we already talked about it's going to go uphill. How steep is it? Well, it's going to go 2 steps up. So 1, 2 steps up, and 1, 2, 3 steps over. There's our line if we just connect those points. Now I'm going to plot a couple more points just to get a bit better picture. So 1, 2 steps up and 3 steps over. There's another point. Now I'm running off my graph. Let me show you a little trick here. If you run out of graph, but you need more dots for your line, just go backwards. So I'm going to go back to the start, and I'm just going to reverse everything. Instead of going up 2, I'm going to, Instead of going up 2, I'm going to go down 2. And instead of going right 3, I'm going to go left 3. I'm just going to reverse everything. I'm going backwards to find the rest of my dots. Because, see, they're all going to line up nicely. It doesn't really matter. You just have to keep straight which way you're going. Now look how nicely those lined up. There's my straight line. It crosses at 2 and it goes up 2 and over 3. So that's this graph right here. That's the graph of that line. Crosses at 2, goes up 2 and over 3. All right? And like I said, you guys can pause the video anytime and graph these. Try and graph these on your own and see if you get it right. So I'm moving on to the second line now. Now look where it crosses the y-axis. That's a -3. Just think of it as a -3. Same thing. It crosses the y-axis at -3. So I'm going to go down 3 steps on the y-axis and put a big old dot there. That's where my line crosses the y-axis. Now I know from my slope, look at the slope again, I know it's going to go uphill. So I'm talking about a positive slope that goes uphill. How steep is it? It goes 2 steps up, 2 steps up, and 3 steps over. And 2 steps up and 3 steps over. Now I ran out of graph, so I'm going to go back to my starting point and go backwards to 2 steps down and 3 steps left. 2 steps down and 3 steps left. That just gets me a few more points to graph. You don't always have to go backwards. It's just if you run out of graph, it's a handy trick. Now notice, take a good look at these lines. Let's learn a little bit extra here. Even though we're not talking about parallel lines yet, we're going to talk about that later. Look at the parallel lines. This has a slope of 2/3, and this has a slope of 2/3. So you guys just learned something about parallel lines that we're going to use later. Parallel lines have the same slope. They have equal slopes. If they run the same direction like railroad tracks, they're going to have the same slope. All right, let's move on. Let's go to one of the downhill lines. So y equals -1/2 x plus 4. First thing you look at is where does it cross the y-axis? It crosses the y-axis at +4. So I'm going to 4 on the y-axis and putting a big dot there. Then I go back to my slope and I say, okay, how steep is my line? First of all, I know it's going downhill because it's negative. And how steep is it? It goes down 1 step and right 2 steps. So down 1 step and right 2 steps puts a dot right there. And down 1 and right 2 puts a dot there, and there, and there. And I'm going to go ahead and go backwards a couple times just to get a couple more dots. You see your line? And there is your downhill line. It crosses at -3. I'm sorry, it crosses at +4 and goes down 1 step and 2 steps over. That's a downhill line. Let's do another downhill line. Y equals -1/2 x minus 2. So first thing you do is you plot that y-intercept. Find -2 on your y-axis. There it is right there. And from there you look at your slope to decide what the line's going to do. The negative tells us it's going to go downhill. So it's going to go down 1 step and 2 steps right. Remember, it always goes to the right. Down 1 step and 2 steps right. Down 1 and over 2, down 1 and over 2. Okay, and I have enough dots to plot that line. But I'm going to go ahead and go backwards and grab a couple more. So I'm going backwards. I'm going up 1 and left 2, up 1 and left 2, just to find a few more dots. And there is our downhill line. That's y equals -1/2 x minus 2. It crosses at -2, goes down 1 step, and right 2. Okay, finally, let's talk about, and notice those two lines are parallel as well. This is m equals -1/2. It had a slope of -1/2. And this also had a slope of -1/2. So those are parallel. Parallel lines have the same slope. We're going to use that later. Remember it. All right, let's talk about horizontal and vertical lines. Now, what if you see y equals 5? How do you graph that? Well, if you want to get fancy, you could move this 5 over and put it over here where we usually have just the regular old number hanging out. And then talk about what is your x term that goes in that gap right there. Well, right now we don't see anything in the gap. There's nothing in the gap. And what number stands for nothing? 0. So really we don't have an x there. We have 0 x's there. It's not really there. I'm just kind of putting it there so I can think about my slope. All right, so y equals 5 is really y equals 0x plus 5. It crosses at 5. And our slope is 0. Now, when you see a whole number slope, and you're trying to figure out rise over run, just turn it into a fraction. You can put any number over 1. So 0 over 1 means it rises 0. That means it doesn't go up, but it does go over 1. So it goes over 1, over 1, over 1. And there's your horizontal line, y equals 5, okay? Now that's a way to do it if you want to get fancy. Usually what I tell people to do, it's a lot easier for them to understand, is when you see y equals a number or x equals a number, just make a quick table. So I'm going to make a quick table for this. Here's x, y, and my rule is y has to be 5. So I'm just going to make my y's 5, and I'll just choose some easy x's and just plot those real quick. Find those points. So 1, 5 is 1 to the right and 5 up, right there. 2, 5 is 2 to the right and 5 up, is right there. And 3, 5 is 3 to the right and 5 up, right there. And we get the very same line. So just plot a quick table and figure it out. All right, let's make a quick table for x equals 4. So here's my x, here's my y. My x has to be 4, that's the rule. And you just pick some nice easy y's to graph. and find those 3 points. So 4, 1 is 4 to the right and 1 up. 4, 2 is 4 to the right and 2 up. And 4, 3 is 4 steps right and 3 steps up. And look, we have a vertical line. Okay, a vertical line that crosses the x-axis. Notice right here, it crosses the x-axis at the number 4. Our y equals 5 crossed the y-axis at y equals 5, at the number 5. So you guys can write yourself some little shortcuts there if you want. Just remember, if you totally blank out and can't remember what to do for y equals a number and x equals a number, just make a quick table. Or you can write yourself a little note that when it's y equals a number, that's going to be a horizontal line, and when it's x equals a number, that's going to be a vertical line.